Welcome back to Lore of the Cards, the series that looks to find the lore hidden within your Hearthstone deck. Today we cover the penultimate wing of the Blackrock mountain adventure, Blackwing Lair, and answer a few questions that may have been raised during our last episode on the Blackrock Spire. The lair is the home of the hulking black dragon, Nefarian. At this point in lore history, Nefarian was the leader of his insidious flight. However, the Black Dragons have not always been a force for evil, their corruption happening many thousands of years ago. After the Titans defeated and imprisoned the old gods, destroying them would have also destroyed Azeroth, they entrusted the dragons to be the caretakers of this new world, imbuing the leaders of the 5 strongest flights with a portion of their power, creating the dragon aspects. The Bronze Flight's Nozdormu was blessed by Aman'Thul, leader of the Great Titan Pantheon, with the ability to watch over the passage of time and could deftly travel between time periods. Malygos and his Blue Flight were tasked by the Pantheon's master magician Norgannon with guarding the magic of Azeroth, regulating its flow and watching over the world's powerful magical artifacts. The Titan Eonar blessed 2 dragons. Alexstrasza the Red was tasked with safeguarding all living creatures, and the green Ysera with protecting the wilds. The black dragon Neltharion was given his power by Khaz'goroth, the titan responsible for shaping the world. He was given power over the very earth. As time passed, it was Neltharion that created the mountains and rivers of Azeroth to benefit the increasing number of mortal races that now flourished in this newly ordered world. His power and wisdom earned him the title Earthwarder. Neltharion began to grow annoyed at the huge responsibility that had been thrust onto him. The very lands of Azeroth were his to shape, but it began to weigh heavily upon the dragon. He felt suffocated, as if the very weight of the world he was charged with maintaining was crushing his soul. Even so, Neltharion soldiered on, not revealing his doubts even to his closest friend Malygos, believing only he should bear the burden. But as a result, he became resentful of his charge. This feeling intensified when Neltharion discovered that Azeroth was an experiment of the Titans. Neltharion's connection to the Earth also meant he was connected to a force deep within it. The Old Gods. The hideous creatures began to whisper to Neltharion, playing upon the dragon's doubts, and he became increasingly paranoid, even towards the other dragon aspects. Heeding the Old Gods' whispers of the other flight's betrayal and the promise of power, Neltharion created the Dragon Soul, an unassuming golden disc that harboured the taint of the Old Gods. When the Burning Legion attempted to destroy Azeroth, as they had done so many worlds before, the maddening Neltharion convinced the other dragon aspects to impart a portion of their power into the Dragon Soul, to wield it as a weapon against the Legion. However, Neltharion had captured and tortured demons, draining them of their power, and placed that into the disc as well. When the Dragonflights joined the battle against the Legion, Neltharion's madness was revealed. He unleashed the power of the Dragon Soul not only on the Burning Legion, but also upon the Night Elves that were desperately trying to defend Azeroth. The other dragons tried to stop Neltharion, but were powerless. Due to imparting their power into the soul, Neltharion held dominance over all of them. This caused the dragons to flee from their maddened brother and his flight. After his truly devastating announcement of his power to the Legion and the Night Elves, Neltharion returned to his lair with the Dragon Soul, which henceforth would be called the Demon Soul. The power of the artifact had begun to warp Neltharion's body, the burning rage within him becoming so intense that it threatened to tear his body apart. His skin cracked, revealing the molten blood that flowed through him, and his eyes burned with a menacing red glow. Neltharion had to do something, or the power would cause his body to rip itself apart from the inside out. The goblins in Neltharion's service created several massive adamantite plates that were attached to the dragon aspect's body. Made of the strongest metal on Azeroth, these plates were the only thing stopping Neltharion's power from destroying himself. Neltharion renamed himself Deathwing to show his intent to wipe out all life that was not the Black Dragonflight. The Legion was defeated and the demon soul removed from Deathwing's possession, being hidden away and a spell placed on the artifact to stop Deathwing from wielding it directly. In his new deformed state, Deathwing attempted to mate with his consorts. All died except for one. His unfortunate prime consort Syntharia would be forever scarred by the experience, with burns that caused her to live in agony for the rest of her life. It's not certain as to whether it was this union or another that spawned two of Deathwing's most malevolent children, Onyxia and Nefarian. After a defeat thousands of years later that left Deathwing's life in the balance and finally destroyed the demon soul, it was Nefarian that took over as the ruler of the Black Flight, while his father recovered in the elemental plane of Deepholm. Despite his father's absence, Nefarian wanted to continue Deathwing's aim of eradicating all non-Black Dragon life, ably assisted by his sister Onyxia. The two needed to find ways of renewing the numbers of the Black Dragons, which had dwindled since their self-imposed forceful isolation from the other flights. In the wake of the Second War, Nefarian led his flight to the Blackrock mountain, seeking to turn the Blackrock Spire into his base of operations. He arrived to find Rend Blackhand's Dark Horde already occupying the halls of the Spire, under attack from the minions of Ragnaros. Seeing an opportunity to gain more pawns for his plans, Nefarian aided the Dark Horde in pushing back the insistent attack of the Fire Lord. To thank Nefarian for his aid, Rend pledged the Dark Horde to the dragon's service. In the highest corridors of the Spire, under the human guise Lord Victor Nefarius, Nefarian created his lair. Unlike his sister Onyxia, there was no pressing need to keep up this human visage. Onyxia took the form of Lady Katarana Prestor to destroy the human kingdom of Stormwind from within. Nefarian seems to take on his form for practical means, as all his subjects are well aware of his heritage. Firstly, it would be difficult for a giant dragon to walk through the confined corridors of the Spire. Nefarian also seems to prefer ruling in the flesh, issuing commands face to face rather than having them passed down. We see this in Rend's final moments, Nefarian commanding the Dark Horde Warchief to deal with the intruders to the Spire himself, rather than rely on his minions. Within his new home, which would become known as Blackwing Lair, Blackwing being one of the many titles the dragon had earned himself over the years, Nefarian began his insidious experiments. The dragon sought to create a new dragonflight, one so perfect that its powers would dwarf those of the other flights. Nefarian and his followers kidnapped whelps from the opposing dragonflights, draining the young dragons of their blood. This blood was then magically infused into dragon eggs. The whelps that hatched from the eggs were either hideously deformed, stillborn, or died within a very short period. However, among the many failures, there were a few successes, and these pink-scaled dragons became known as the Chromatic Flight. The purpose of this new flight was to crush the enemies of the Black Flight, which meant all other dragonflights and the mortal kingdoms of Azeroth as well. Nefarian was confident the flight could achieve this, if he could perfect their creation. They possessed the powers of all the major flights. Of the few that survived, 2 chromatic dragon spawn were gifted to Nefarian's commander, General Drakisar. A handful of whelps were given to Rend to aid him with the defence of the Spire. And the Dark Horde Warchief was also gifted with one of Nefarian's greatest successes. The Black Dragon had tried to magically age several of the chromatic whelps, creating a more powerful, mature Drake. Again, this mostly ended in failures. One of the few successes though was Gith, who was given to Rend as a mount. The mature Drake was very powerful, with an aptitude for several different magic schools: arcane, ice, fire, and the ability to spew up a corrosive acid. Blackwing Lair became a deranged dungeon of horrors. Some of the full-grown dragons Nefarian had been able to capture hanged from the dungeon walls, hooks gouged into their flesh and drained of all their vital fluids. Despite being one of the most powerful and cunning dragons on Azeroth, Nefarian did have flaws, his greatest being his hubris and arrogance. Perhaps it is for this reason that many of his experimental eggs were actually placed at the very entrance of his domain. He did not leave them unguarded, however, putting them in the care of Khaz'goroth the Untamed. There has been no definitive lore penned for Khaz'goroth, though we can make a few assumptions about his character by looking at his World of Warcraft encounter. Khaz'goroth was untamed by title and untamed by nature. In order to get Khaz'goroth to follow his commands, Nefarian placed an orb within the egg chamber that could be used to control the Dragonspawn's body. Khaz'goroth still kept his awareness, but his actions were not his own. This orb was constantly manned by the Blackrock orc Blackrock the Controller, who himself was protected by 2 bodyguards. The orc mage had to channel the orb's power constantly to keep Khaz'goroth's savage nature in check. When 40 heroes ventured into Nefarian's lair to slay the dragon, they first stepped into the egg chamber. Rather than fight the orcs and the Dragonspawn together head on, the adventurers devised a plan to not only slay the Dragonspawn, but also destroy Nefarian's doctored eggs. The orcs at the orb were slain, and its power used to dominate Khaz'goroth. The Untamed was forced into destroying the eggs, all the while screaming threats at those that forced him to do so. Khaz'goroth clearly cared for the eggs, referring to them as precious when being forced to destroy them. While Khaz'goroth no doubt made an intimidating guard, he was also perhaps the egg's carer, with the orb used to restrain his powers so that he did not accidentally destroy them. This is further backed up with his hero power in Hearthstone, which allows Khaz'goroth to cultivate the eggs. But we're entering into the realms of theory crafting there. Khaz'goroth's cries of anguish and anger alerted the soldiers of Nefarian. Blackrock orcs and Dragonspawn streamed into the chamber, attempting to kill either the hero controlling Khaz'goroth or the great black reptile himself, anything to stop the destruction of their master's precious experiments. They were unsuccessful, and as Khaz'goroth destroyed the last egg, he erupted with rage, breaking free of the orb, using his magic to return him to full strength and charging at the adventurers. The Dragonspawn's attacks inspired fear even in the bravest of heroes, his conflagration attack burning the flesh of his adversaries with such intensity that it caused them to run around in a blind panic. Eventually, Khaz'goroth's uncontrollable rage was put to an end with his death. In World of Warcraft, players never get to see these eggs hatch, but in Hearthstone, the horrors within are unleashed. If there is one dragonflight the Blacks hate above all others, it is the Red. When Neltharion became Deathwing, he became known as the Aspect of Death. While Deathwing wanted to eradicate life, the dragon that stood in opposition was Alexstrasza, the Lifebinder. The Red Drake had been tasked by the Titans to care for and nurture all the living creatures of Azeroth. She quickly became the main target of Deathwing's ire. The malevolent Aspect wanted to destroy all life, but keep Alexstrasza and Ysera alive, keeping the two aspects as slaves for mating. If Syntharia's experience was anything to go by, this was a fate far worse than death. During the Second War, though Deathwing was unable to wield the demon soul directly, he was able to deliver it to the hands of the Horde, who used the disc's mighty power to enslave Alexstrasza. They used the Aspect as an egg factory, taking her offspring to fight the Alliance during the war. When Alexstrasza finally escaped, she was instrumental in the battle that saw the wounded Deathwing retreat into Deepholm. The Black Dragonflight hate the Red for the opposition to their ideals. The Red hate the Black for their role in the enslavement of their queen. The Red Dragon Veilistraz was no different to a majority of the Red Flight and harboured a deep resentment for the Black Flight. Veilistraz's distaste for Nefarian ran so deep that he vowed to hunt the son of Deathwing to the end of his days. Taking on the guise of a Blackrock Orc, Veilistraz was able to infiltrate the lower reaches of the Blackrock Spire, but was unable to gain access to the upper levels. Heroes encountered Veilistraz partway through his mission to create the key that would grant him access to the upper levels. As they approached the Orc to slay him as they had so many others before, Veilistraz changed to his human form, going by the name of Valen. The dragon informed the heroes that they needed to gain several gemstones from the commanders of Lower Blackrock Spire, and when they did, he was able to forge them into a key. Once inside the spire, Valen assisted the heroes with their fight against Rend Blackhand. If they invoked the power of the Seal of Ascension, the dragon, to Nefarian's annoyance, would heal the raid and damage the warchief, as long as he was dismounted from Gith. With Rend dead, Valen ran off ahead of the adventurers to confront Nefarian in his lair. He found and attacked Nefarian, but the leader of the Black Dragons proved to be too much. He defeated Valen, and as his injured body lay upon the floor, Nefarian began the process of corrupting the dragon and turning him over to his side. After narrowly defeating Khaz'goroth, the heroes ventured into the next chamber, just in time to witness Nefarian finishing his corruption of Veilistraz. The Red Drake resisted a little while longer, but eventually succumbed, turning his considerable might against the raid. It would have been near impossible for them to stop a dragon as powerful as Veilistraz, so as one final act before he became fully corrupted, Veilistraz empowered the adventurers so that they were able to defeat him. This empowerment is seen in Hearthstone, with Valen's hero power, actually assisting his opponent as well as himself with card draw. Many were destined to fall in this fight, as Veilistraz had an instant death mechanic, but eventually the heroes won out, putting the corrupted dragon out of his misery. Reviving those that have fallen, they continued on with their quest to defeat Nefarian. The adventurers faced many other powerful foes as they ventured through Nefarian's sanctuary. The Draconid Broodlord Lashlayer, and the Black Dragons Firemaw, Ebonrock and Flamegore. These foes paled in comparison when compared to one of the most fearsome chromatic experiments, Chromaggus. It is theorised that Chromaggus was the result of experiments not just on dragons, but the minions of the Fire Lord as well. Since Ragnaros was such a thorn in Nefarian's side, he relished every one of his minions he captured, mercilessly torturing them. Nefarian didn't make a habit of missing any opportunities either, committing the elemental servants of Ragnaros to experimentation as well. It is thought that through experimenting with corehounds like the Beast, the dragon was able to create Chromaggus. This has never been expressly stated, but the physical similarities are undeniable. As well as possessing the bestial strength of a corehound, Chromaggus was also infused with the powers of the dragonflights. As the heroes fought Chromaggus, his chromatic powers meant he was able to cast several afflictions upon his attackers. These afflictions are seen in Hearthstone as Chromaggus' hero power and mirror their effects in Warcraft. The red affliction is almost an exact copy in both WoW and Hearthstone, damaging the hero. The green affliction halved the healing done to the hero in WoW, but in Hearthstone heals Chromaggus, again manipulating a health pool. In WoW, the blue affliction impeded the fighter's ability to cast spells. In Hearthstone, it again relates to the use of magic, making it easier for Chromaggus to cast his spells. The black and bronze are the furthest departure from their WoW counterparts, the black increasing fire damage to the hero and the bronze periodically stunning them. Those inflicted with all the diseases would be morphed into a Draconid, losing all self-control and attacking the party, represented in the Hearthstone encounter with the card Chromatic Dragon Kin. After a grueling journey, fighting horror after horror, the heroes finally confronted Neltharion. When battle was first joined, Nefarian stayed out of the fight, his Draconid guard rushing in to stop the raid, while an invulnerable Neltharion in human form cast shadow bolts, made the mortals run in fear, and even bent some to his will using mind control. With his guards slain, Neltharion lost his immunity and finally revealed his true dragon form, towering over the adventurers, much like Victor Nefarius' hero power which transforms him. As well as blasting the raid with his breath, a powerful mix of fire and shadow magic known as Shadow Flame, Neltharion was able to cast restrictions over the raid, depending on their class. With each new class added to the game, Neltharion had a new restriction to cast. It is this ability that Hearthstone references with his hero power in dragon form and with his legendary card. Druids were forced into cat form, rogues brought out of hiding, mages were polymorph friends, hunters' weaponry would break in their hands, priests' healing would also damage their allies, shaman summoned totems for Neltharion, warriors lost their defensive capabilities, paladins shielded Neltharion from harm, warlocks were forced to summon infernals to fight against the raid, death knights had their death grip spell stolen, and monks were forced to endlessly roll. In a last desperate bid to avoid defeat, Neltharion raised his slain soldiers as skeletons, but this would not save him. The son of Deathwing was slain by the adventurers, but not even death would be strong enough to stop Neltharion. So, there you have it, the lore behind Blackwing Lair. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, like, subscribe, and share it around. It really does help us out. And you get to see more of this series when I make it. Woo! If you like the art, check out the artists. All those I could find are credited in the description below. See you next time for our final episode on the Blackrock Mountain, the hidden laboratory. Happy Hearthstoning, guys. Bye bye.